So Bruno is the co-founder and CRO of iMoney, that stands for Chief Revenue Officer. He was before the head of products and segments for the CIMB. He worked for retail products in NB&K Investments. He was head of savings in Standard Bank, head of savings in Citibank, head of credit cards in the European blah blah. He has a large, amazing experience on finances and banking. So guys, you have an amazing person here to share his story and his learnings on entrepreneurship, partnerships, investments. So please, give a big round of applause to Bruno Araujo. Woo!
Try next time to be as enthusiastic. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, so how are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. I had one slice of pizza. I managed.
Oh, one slice of pizza?
Yeah, it's good.
But you didn't have to fight over it?
No, it was left.
Okay, good enough. So the water, you have another water there, so it's going to help you doing some abs. Okay, so before we start, I'd like let's start with the biggest question I think I have this night.
Okay.
Who are you?
You asked this of Patrick as well, I think. Who am I? Apart from the metaphysical sort of sense of the question, I was born in Portugal. I lived there for a long time. I went to the UK to study. I spent a lot of time in banks in the UK. Some jobs interesting, some jobs as boring as you might imagine. It's a very anti-innovation culture in banks. So some of those jobs end up being pretty tough, but always good learning experiences. And then after that, I got an email, I got a LinkedIn mail. So you'll never believe just how bizarre the job opportunities you get through LinkedIn, but I got a LinkedIn mail from someone in Malaysia saying, it just said, would you consider working in Malaysia? And I actually just replied, sure, let's talk. And that's how it started, and I think 3 years ago I came here, so I've been here since 2011.
2011. Do you think that's a normal question? Like, sure.
Oh yeah, I've seen all sorts of weird things through LinkedIn. I've heard of people who have closed, who have actually invited, investors have pitched to companies on LinkedIn. So people have sort of said, look, I'd love to, I hear you're raising, I'd love to be part of your round, can I come and meet you? Just because it's difficult to get hold of email sometimes. But things like LinkedIn, I've heard of people sort of pitching and raising through Facebook as well, getting in touch. So yeah, I mean, I haven't had a weirder request than, do you want to go work in Malaysia? But you just embrace it and carry on.
Great, so getting to know more about you, because on the surface, it's okay, he got an offer to come to Malaysia on LinkedIn and he said, sure. But what is it usually that makes your decision making? What guides your decision making process?
Yeah, so 2-second rule. If after 2 seconds you haven't really figured out what is a good reason to say no, probably right that you should sort of go with your gut. And so, yeah, 2-second rule or gut feel or whatever, you tend not to deviate too much from that initial gut feel, or at least I haven't in everything I've done, and it's held me in pretty good stead so far.
Mm-hmm. So 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Like 2?
Yeah.
Okay. So you worked in banks for most of your life. You graduated, you started working in a bank.
Yeah, I studied English and history, but I went into banking.
Okay. Yeah. And so when did you start thinking about entrepreneurship?
Probably when I went to university. So it was like, it took a long time for it to actually happen. But when I was at university, they had student unions. They're quite big in the UK. So if you've been to a UK university, you'll know the student union organizes events. They run bars. They're quite commercial organizations. So I was quite heavily involved in that, and I ended up running one of the student unions. And that gives you kind of a little feel for running your own business, even though all the heavy lifting's done, it's making money and all that stuff. It just gives you a really good insight into how to run a small company and the scrappiness you need to sort of employ in a startup. And even in banks, you know, I've been part of banks that have been startups. The difference is they've had, you know, whatever, $250 million to spend, which is very different, but the principles are the same. You start with a small team, you might not have a proven model, you're testing something. All that changes is sort of the budget and some of the people you can hire. So you can go straight away for sort of really high caliber people and hire sort of all around. But it's similar. So all through my career, I've always been drawn to, even if it's in banking, the more entrepreneurial side of financial services organizations, and I guess it started at uni.
So for how many years did you work in banks?
Too many. I don't know, I think 2001 to about 2013.
Okay, so the last position you held actually was a very, very high position. Which one was that?
At CIMB, I was just head of products for CIMB here in Malaysia.
It was just the head of products. Okay.
I mean, the thing is, when you tell this to someone, it is obviously a very senior position, but it has no real connection to people, so they don't really, you know, what does that mean? You know, just run credit cards and home loans and stuff like that. Yeah, but what does running mean? You have to make the pricing decisions, you have to make the new products, you have to, you know, manage retention, all that stuff. So, yeah, big, but it doesn't really have a very big connection with consumers.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit before, and he told me that what he would get in iMoney when you started was like equivalent to 5% of what you were getting before.
Yeah.
And
probably.
First of all, okay, that's enough. There's another point to the question, but what made you sure of this decision? I'm going to quit my job, that's amazing, freaking awesome, and I'm going to jump on this startup.
There's a couple of things. The first thing is the confidence you have in yourself. So whether you believe you can make a difference and do something big. Second thing is whether you believe in kind of the team you're with. And both, you know, both of those questions I felt, you know, I don't see, you know, a better team than ours. I don't see, you know, someone who can make a more serious dent in the market than us. So I always felt really, really confident that we were going to do really well. So that's why I decided. Apart from that, I mean, you know, there always comes to a point in your life where you can always take another, you know, good-paying job, and actually, most of the time, the danger is to sort of convince yourself that this is a big risk. Okay, it's never a big risk. What's the worst that can happen? You go away for a year, you have a very strong learning experience from that. You always move forward. You never move back. You know, in terms of your development. So if you have to go back after 1 year and go and knock on some doors of some banks and say, look, you know, I've got this track record, I did quite well, and I've just spent a year building a business that didn't work out, you can just go back to that. It's never a risk.
It's a good point of view, and also like dying of hunger is actually very complicated today, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of the stuff, right? If you think about all these entrepreneurs that you guys interview here, a lot of entrepreneur stories that you're going to hear from around the world, very similar. The biggest difference is not a skill set or you know, or some technical know-how. It's just attitude mostly. It's these guys who are just not. They're not going to stop. They're not going to listen to what people say. They're just going to carry on and do it. And you know, a little bit tricks of the mind. You've got to tell yourself, you know, remind yourself. There's no risk. You just, you know, 1 year, fine. If it doesn't work out, you go back to whatever you were doing before, whatever.
Amazing. So, on the reasons why you decided to jump on it, you mentioned the team, that couldn't be a better team than that one. So, you started iMoney with Ching, and so what about Ching and what about the team made you so sure they were the right team?
So, I mean, back in the day, Kylie, myself, we got together and talked very broadly about setting up a company in financial services. I explained sort of roughly how it would work, and you know, Kylie is very, very action-oriented, very sort of divergent. Let's go away and do this. I said, well, I'm not going to do it because I've got a day job. You're not going to do it because you've got many day jobs. Sure, find someone to do it.
Just be sure, does everyone know who Kylie is?
Oh, sorry.
Yes? They will be ashamed with it. Okay, Kylie is an entrepreneur from Malaysia. He works for 500 startups now. He's a venture partner.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone knows him, but just in case.
You've probably seen the hair to start with. So he's very enthusiastic, very energetic, always believes in the possibilities, never the downsides, and that's always very important to have someone like that on kind of your side. The second thing is, look, I wasn't going to run it. He wasn't going to run it. You know, these ideas are just ideas until you find someone to actually go and, you know, put the spade into the ground and build it. And so he, a few days later, I can't remember the exact number of days, but I got this email from this guy who's from my school. He left a message on my website, and he wants to get involved in startups. I think he could be the one. So I met him, and I asked him broad questions. But the question I asked is, what happens if this doesn't work out? He said, I don't care. I don't care. I've done all this stuff before. I can always go back and do it again. No big deal. Okay, good. And we started. Ching just took the money that we were willing to put into it, put his own money as well, and just ran with it. And it was very quick from there.
I'm going to ask you a question. You can feel free to answer or not. But by that time, you were the investor A.
Or B or C, I can't remember. Yeah, it was all three of us. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the beginning, you didn't want to be public with your angel investment, did it?
I think the issue there is where there's a couple of things. So firstly, it's less about the investors and it's more about the entrepreneur. Number one.
Yeah.
So the entrepreneur is Ching. If everyone thinks that Ching is just doing what these guys with money say, it's pointless. It's his business. You know, he took the biggest chunk of the equity, and because he is doing it, right? There's no point. You know, I joined at a later stage, and it's very easy to come in at a later stage when all the hard work is done. So, for him, it's his business, it's his company. The fact that I work there and I'm an investor is almost like by the by. He built it, not me.
Mm-hmm. So, I wanted to just know, because it's a different story, because you were there from the beginning. You were actually co-founders.
Oh yeah, so yeah, the other thing is obviously, I wanted Ching to go and do business development with the banks. And we didn't talk too much about me being involved just because we didn't want people to think that somehow there's a conflict of interest and they were helping CIMB, which I was working for at the time. So I said, look, I'll give you the contact, but it's up to you. Yeah? So that's the other thing. I didn't want people to think, well, I work for Maybank, I can't talk to this guy because he was CIMB, there must be something fishy going on. So actually, anonymity or whatever is actually important for Ching to go on and do his job.
Got it. And what were the challenges of joining in as a co-founder 18 months after the startup was already running?
I actually joined, I think, less. I think it was June 2012 started, so I joined maybe 10 months, 10 to 11.
Okay.
What's the difference? So I think there's something solid, there's something there, there's traction, which helps. That's the most important thing. I think the other thing is you develop a little bit your ideas about what you want to do. So Ching, by that stage, had become very, very clear that he wanted to focus on home loans specifically, because he thought there's a good opportunity here, and I want to do this, and then, look, I want to go into other countries very quickly. So, there's a little bit more cement there to build on, which I think is important. If I had come in right at the start to help him do it, I think he would have built up a different company because, this guy invested money as well, so I need to listen to him. No, don't listen to me, just do your thing. I'll come in later and sort of help, right? And sort of help you sort of push it in the right direction if you need, or contacts or whatever. But really it's kind of, his business and his direction and his vision. And then when I came in, all I was doing was just helping push a little bit harder. And sort of keep the momentum going in the right direction. I think that's the main thing. It's not de-risked at 9 or 10 months or whatever it was. For any of, we have got some employees here. Some of them might have been in our very early office. That's not a de-risked office.
Cool. Just for you guys who are in the back, we have some spots. We can just sit in the floor here in the front if you don't mind. Just letting you know. Going back to the team. So Amit Anand from Jungle referred to you guys as the most, I have the exact words, but as the best team in the region to execute once. That's something, right? So,
try my coffee next time.
Yeah. What do you think makes you guys become that? Because as I listen to you, I find very amazing the egolessness of both you and Ching in a way that you guys just want to get shit done. How did you get to that? Do you think both of you had it? Do you think you built that culture together? How do you become the best team to execute in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, look, I guess egolessness is a good term. We've heard a lot of stories of good entrepreneurs who together are less than the sum of their parts if they decide to build a company. I don't know, too much ego, or I want to go this way, you want to go that way. I don't. We just want to drive the company in the best direction, and we're very agnostic about what that best direction is. Is it most traffic? Is it most revenue? I hope it's the most of everything. And we're totally going in the right direction. But egolessness is definitely like one way of doing it. I think the other one is we're very clear about, even though the metrics can change from month to month, particularly from some of our earlier months to some of our later months, once we decide on what we're going to measure success by, we just stick to that quite religiously. So, okay, this month we've got to get this done, this done, this done, and everyone just goes away and does it. The other thing, you've got to hire people who kind of buy into that or understand. If you're going to hire people who feel put out by that culture, and they might, then it's never going to work. So identify people early who are not going to work very well under that system, and just help them out. But bring as well, hire guys who've focused on getting stuff done. Very important.
Just curiosity, how do you find if the person has this mindset when you're interviewing them?
Yeah, it's difficult to find. So we do a lot of hiring through recommendations, number one. So some of our investors have worked in big scale businesses in Southeast Asia, iProperty and Carlist and a few others. And they recommend people that they worked with before. And that's a very big plus in our book, because these guys are very well respected. So if they recommend someone, then that's obviously a good sign. But the second thing is, no one works at places like iProperty or Muda or Carlist or all these other places if they don't already have some exposure to that culture of just, right, it's getting done this way, and it's getting done quickly. So that's also a way of sort of filtering, if you like. Now, obviously not everyone can go and hire from those places. But generally, I even feel that the way people apply for jobs is a good indicator. I mean, I've got tired of people go on JobStreet. Hey, if you know what company you're applying to, there must be an email out there somewhere. Find it, email this person, be relentless. People who don't turn up for interviews, well, they can't be that motivated. People who lose track, well, that's not going to happen. So even the way people approach the process can be an indicator. Yeah?
Amazing. So going a bit to your business model, I hope everyone here knows iMoney, what they do. And you have a very big comparable, Money Supermarket in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I want to know why iMoney? Why did you come up with this model? So you can start by that.
Yeah, we were in Kylie's house. And I think Kylie takes the credit for iMoney. Because he said, we already have iProperty, we have iCar. Yeah, do iMoney.
Okay.
It was as simple
That's
as that.
so creative.
And obviously, Ching and Bruno, yeah, let's go do it.
And so regarding the model, thinking of it as, so in this business, Bruno can explain that way better than me, so I hope you do. But you can be like a financial comparison website, or you can also do services.
Yeah, I can. So the idea is it's just a supermarket for financial services products. So you want to go buy a credit card or a personal loan or home loan? You can just go there, compare. Some of them, you get pushed onto the website of the bank. Others, we can do it for you. So things like home loans, very complex. I don't know, I like this bank, but I don't know what the difference is between Flexi and non-Flexi. Okay, you can come to us. We'll give you a mortgage advisor to come and help you and do everything for you. So that one's a little bit more service-driven. The rest is just hopefully very seamless, very simple.
But why having a comparable that's mainly lead generation for banks? What made you think that in Malaysia you needed to also offer services? Because you also do some services, right?
Yeah.
People apply for loans, and so why, instead of making it just lead generation or ads, why did you decide to go for service, which I think requires a more complicated operation?
Yeah, it does. Very complicated at times. Why? We'd heard about, I mean, the first thing when you start a lead gen business, a couple of things happen. The first thing is your first leads suck. Secondly, your volume sucks. Okay, so you can go around offering your leads for free, but you'll run into lots of problems. And if your leads are being taken for free and no one's interested because the quality is rubbish, well, you're going to have to do something different, right? So I think Ching looked at this in quite some detail, and he kind of said, look, there's a couple of guys out there I found, and they're doing like mortgage outsourcing. So they do, they take licenses from banks, and they just go and offer themselves as representatives of whatever, OCBC or Hong Leong or whatever. I said, okay, that could be quite interesting, yeah. All you need to do is get the license and the team, you're up and running. So that's what he did, and we got onto that model sometime early in 2013. So it's been going for like just over a year now. So I think that was the key thing. He'd met these guys who told him about this and said, look, you know, every year I do whatever, 400 million ringgits of home loans. And Ching just went, must be some money in that. Yeah.
Some.
A little.
So you said I saw some numbers that the market is 100 billion in Southeast Asia, right?
It's 100 billion ringgit in Malaysia.
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
Just in Malaysia. 100 billion ringgits of new home loans every year.
How is it in US? How big is your market in Southeast Asia?
The totality of the market in Southeast Asia just for home loans, because then you've got credit cards, personal loans, etc. Just the market in Southeast Asia is bigger than the market in Germany today. So,
wow.
And obviously it's growing, whereas the market in a first world country like Germany is just very mature, very stagnant, little growth.
Amazing. So just for understanding, you have a difference between users and consumers, right? Your customers
consumers
are
and customers, or users and customers. Yeah.
So actually, who gives you money?
The banks.
Okay.
They're the customers.
And is it a chicken and egg relationship? Did you get the banks first and the users came, or did you get the users and the banks came? How did you do it? Because you should think about it in your business. We're talking about finance, but many businesses have the same difference.
It's a marketplace, right? So think about CarList, okay? So CarList, part of iCar Asia, they're the same. They want to build a marketplace. So why do people come to a marketplace? Because there's users. There's people there listing cars. There's no one there listing cars, and people aren't coming to visit. I'm not going to go. The banks are the same. So you can go away and build the sort of, I've got 25,000 coming in on SEO, I'm #1 for this position, blah, blah, blah. Great, 25,000 people. When I was at CIMB, we were originating about, 1.2 billion ringgits of home loans every month. And if you're bringing me like 2 million, it's not really going to shift the needle. So first you have to build a marketplace. To build a marketplace, you've got to build a product. So your product's got to be good, it's got to be up to date, it's got to be accurate, and it's got to be good to use, right? If people don't feel that it's up to date, or they look at it and go, it doesn't look like it's been updated in 3 months, you're going to lose. So build the product, then build the marketplace. So go out and find consumers whichever way you can afford. And third, before you know it, money will come, so the banks will come. Obviously you have to go and meet the banks and do business development, but that bit's okay. So the key thing is build the marketplace first. You'll just find that before you know it, things start changing very quickly.
I have several questions there because that's a topic that can involve many areas, many companies, but first is related to user acquisition. I want to ask you guys, how did you do it? But I'm going to start by asking, when you got the first banks, it was very early stage, when the very did you fake it till you make it?
No, never.
Okay.
I mean, look, there's lots of people who, we've spoken to VCs who say, I spoke to this company in some country and they had this and they're much better than you. They're not around anymore. So when we signed deals, there were real deals. People could go, when investors come in a seed round or a Series A, the first thing they ask is to do due diligence, right? And they say, look, I want to see this contract, that contract, I want to see your bank account, blah, blah, blah. So it's very easy to check. The other thing is, the investment community in Southeast Asia is very small. The area is very big, but the guys doing deals, not very big, not very many of them. Yeah. So if one VC has done kind of any due diligence on you, and your numbers don't stack up, or there's something fishy, or whatever, word gets around very, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So that should keep most people in check. There's always people who are going to try funny business. With us, it was just like, yeah, we got a contract, we got #1 positions on these keywords, we got whatever it was at the time. Very early, it was like 50,000 traffic, which now is like a dot in comparison, but it was like, okay, let's go.
So how did you do it? How did you start getting users? Because there are two things I see as complicated in here. First, there's no culture of online banking yet by the time you guys started. Not here. So how did you start getting users?
Well, you know, there is online banking exists in Malaysia. You know, I'm sure most people in this room will have an online banking account. The penetration of online banking is relatively low. So there's about, most banks, 30% of their users are online. Or use online banking. It doesn't mean they're not online for other things. Sometimes it's a traditional thing. You might have a guy who's mostly like, I don't know, old uncle, just goes and uses the ATM, but he's checking out Muda to see if he can get some cheap cars or something. So that's different. The reality is everyone is online in one form or another, apart from if you're from a different generation. And the good thing about Southeast Asia, it's a relatively young generation, and this will grow. But the second thing is, for everything people do in life, they tend to go and search first. Ask questions in Google. Sometimes they go on YouTube to ask as well. Whoever still uses Bing as well. So people are searching. The volume is there. The question is more about, have you got enough people coming and using your product early? And the way we did it was just build the product and see if they come. If no one comes, then there's no business, right? Second thing is, when you're looking to build a marketplace, the temptation is to say, oh wow, I've built a marketplace for, I don't know, like in our case for banks, let's go talk to Maybank. Don't care. No one cares. It's too small. But maybe if you go and talk to some of the smaller banks, they might be more interested in that. So always find like the guy who is desperate to use you. Like that's you. And someone once told me, you know, when I build a business or a startup, I'm looking for my cookie monster, the guy who's like, yes, this is what I've been looking for all my life, right? And you talk to some of the small banks and like, give me any customers and I'll be delighted. Talk to the biggest banks and like, too insignificant. So it's the same thing when you build a marketplace. Start with the guys who are actually going to use you.
Find your early adopters, basically. I find a certain similarity, I don't know if you agree, between your business and a certain level iProperty and MyTaxi, considering that the traditional business is totally offline.
Yeah.
So how does that impact the beginning of your marketing? Because I see MyTaxi invests a lot on offline marketing. iProperty just the same.
Yeah.
Did you guys invest in it as well?
Yeah, we don't invest, I don't think, as much as those guys do, because you know, my gut feel is they need it more at this stage. For us, for example, we can spend more on online marketing to bring more consumers in. The offline part, so we do stuff with real estate agents, for example. That's probably where we spend most of our offline cash. But iProp cannot exist without real estate agents, so they need to develop that channel. MyTaxi cannot exist without its taxi driver, so it needs to develop that channel. For us, hey, real estate agents are part of our home loan business, but you know, there are other parts of our business that do not require any kind of offline marketing, for sure. But we've got a couple of things in the pipeline to build on that. Hopefully towards the end of the year we'll see those go live.
Great. So there are a few things we're going to talk about in here, like these guys, they achieved great investments in different rounds from the beginning. I'm going to list that down. We're going to talk about fundraising and ecosystem, but I'd like to come back before to this topic of the cookie monster. Yeah. This is also a term they use on the Lean Startup machine, that when you're trying out a product, you should find your cookie monster. And in Patrick Grove's interview, when asking him a question I'm going to ask you actually, which was like,
who are you?
That goes for everyone. Why Malaysia? For entrepreneurship. I'm going to ask you that, not now. He mentioned that actually, surprisingly, his investments in Malaysia would turn out better return of investment than his investments in a big market like Indonesia.
Yeah.
So I'd like to understand a little bit more of Malaysia, why Malaysia, from this Patrick's perspective of, do we have more Cookie Monsters in Malaysia than usually? We're all around.
Well, why Malaysia for us? Number one, I'm here, it helps.
Okay.
Number two, maybe take it away from Cookie Monsters and talk about Goldilocks, right? So Goldilocks is the story of the girl who goes around trying the bear's sort of food, right? One is too hot, the other one is too cold. Malaysia is just right, okay? So that's the most important thing about Malaysia. Cost of labor is not too expensive, it's not too cheap. Quality is good for that price, so value is there. Cost of setting up a business is easy, right? It's easy and it's relatively cheap. A lot of the infrastructure is already there, right? Like boring things. Oh, the internet works. You know, Wi-Fi speeds are good. They've got lots of people who have smartphones and broadband at home. That helps, right? So that's number one. That also means that all your potential customers are more advanced and have more money and are going through some of the challenges that some businesses maybe in Indonesia are not yet going through. So for example, in Malaysia, it's a serious problem this year and last that the cost of acquiring customers through offline is going up. Why? Because the customers aren't there. Who goes to a bank? So more and more consumers are going digital, and this is good. But for Malaysia specifically, it just seems to be, and because of its size as well, you know, you've got maybe 30 million people, you want to go outside Malaysia straight away. Because if you can build a good proposition in Malaysia, you know, even though Bahasa is 30% of the actual online traffic, hey, Bahasa Indonesia is not a big stretch, right? So you can go build something in Indonesia, not too difficult. Philippines is English, and sort of is kind of the same level of evolution. So before you know it, almost as soon as you start to do business, you're already looking out around. Singapore, the guys love to perfect everything, and you know, they've found this squash ladder that they've designed. Who's going to use the squash ladder in Malaysia? No one. They're trying to solve very little problems for a country that is very, very different from the rest of the continent. So Malaysia is perfect, and the other thing is there's use cases. So it's no coincidence that the biggest digital scale businesses in Southeast Asia are here. JobStreet, iProp, iCar, yeah, all that stuff, it's here. And you look at the size of these businesses, compare them to anyone else in Southeast Asia. Bigger, always.
I don't know why, I hope no one from Singapore listens to it, but Singapore has the brand, but they ain't got any big companies like Malaysia did.
They do have some. Yeah, they do have some. So what I think Singapore is very strong at is things to do with intellectual property. So you saw Vicky be acquired by for 200 million by Rakuten. Vicky is really an intellectual property business, and you know, the legal infrastructure is fantastic. The talent you can get to build some of that video and sort of annotation capability is really good. That works very, very well there. But I think, I like Singapore very much, and I admire its ecosystem. But I think this is one of the challenges for them: is how do they build businesses to scale out to Asia?
Yeah, we're talking about scaling regionally. Also, we don't want to think, okay, Malaysia is the market, let's stay in Malaysia, because exactly the idea is go global or regional. So next step is, why did you decide going regional instead of going global?
You know, if you're number one in your specific country at an early stage, that's got some value. But if at an early stage you're number one in 2 or 3 countries, it multiplies your value. Investors generally are not looking for, you know, tight little businesses that are fantastic in one country. Yeah, I mean, in the US it's different because it's such a huge market.
Yeah.
But for early stage, you really have to think about, okay, does it work in another country? Can you do it in another country? Because if not, then investors maybe hold back and see, maybe I invest in a guy who can do it in 3 countries. Maybe I wait. So you can command higher valuations, you can command more interest if people are like, okay, don't bother. These guys are in 3 countries today, right? So it's kind of weird, but plus, you know, make it work. If you see you can make it work, do it.
Cool. And what are the challenges that, like, I don't know, language, law, what are the main challenges to establish a company? Because you guys are in Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia.
Yeah, don't worry about that many countries.
Okay.
Is my advice. So we started in all those countries primarily just to see what works, right? We figured out pretty quickly, okay, Hong Kong, don't like that. Don't like Hong Kong. It's very expensive to acquire traffic. It feels a little bit further away. The banks is going through a bit of a difficult period. Maybe they don't want to spend. Maybe, let's get out of Hong Kong. So we still have a business there. We still do business in Hong Kong, but it's not a priority for us.
Okay.
Same with Thailand. Okay, in Malaysia, if you produce anything, content, a website, hey, you have some feeling that it's a good product or a bad product. In Thailand, there's probably 30 people in our office going around thinking, is this good or is it bad? I can't read. I don't understand what it says. And even our country managers, we just didn't have that. So that was a sort of a problem on the ground. The second thing about Thailand is every 2 years they decide to have a form of political unrest, which means no one's searching for financial services products anymore, and everyone's searching for truncheons and the military and all that stuff. So we just really early on reached the conclusion, right? Hong Kong and Thailand. Let's put it sort of on autopilot, and let's focus on what we can cause some real damage, which is Malaysia, obviously, Singapore, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And if you look around you, always look around you at your peers. Job Street, strong in 2-3 countries. Job Central, 2-3 countries. Even iProp is like Malaysia and maybe one other, and all the other sort of businesses around it doing well, but it's really Malaysia that pulls it all together. So for us, it's no different. I mean, Malaysia is the core market, it's the biggest market for us, it's the engine. But yeah, try and bring 2 or 3 along with you if you can.
So if you would start expanding again, what countries would you focus in?
Maybe we wouldn't have spent any time on Thailand and Hong Kong. I went to Hong Kong a couple of times, but it's really tough out there. Good luck to anyone who can do, get traction in Hong Kong. It's a tough market.
And regarding users' early adoption, is it really different in Malaysia? Are people really more eager to try new things?
In Malaysia?
Yeah.
Are they more eager to try new things? No, I think they're more just problem focused. Like if this solves a problem that I have in my life, then that's a good thing. I mean, you look at the businesses on the digital side that have succeeded. I want to sell my car. I want to buy a house. I want to open a bank account or a credit. These things are just boring, normal things, but there's big businesses to be built out of them for sure.
So you're comparable. That's not completely the same you're doing, but Money Supermarket in the UK, that was the first that came to my mind. They're worth, like, if I'm not mistaken, over £1 billion or dollars valuated.
Yeah, about one point something billion GDP.
Yeah. So if they are valuated on that, what can we expect of iMoney?
Well, I'm not stopping until it's 29 billion GDP.
Okay, let's go.
It's all made up numbers. I mean, the difference between us and them is obviously they're listed on the stock exchange.
Yeah.
So the valuation happens, based on who's willing to buy and sell. We're a totally different part of the world. We're a totally different stage.
Yeah.
There's definitely, the potential is there because you have Money Supermarket in the UK, you have iSelect in Australia, you have Interhub in Germany. They're all kind of, it took a long time to get those businesses sorted, but once they got sorted, they went for big valuations. So it's not so much about the end valuation, it's more about just get it done, right? Because no one's going to be trading at crazy valuations if you've got a bad business, even if it's in gold mining or diamond mining, whatever. Just get a good business going. That's the most important thing.
And what defines a good business for you, or what are your criteria that build your valuation?
Customers keep coming back.
Awesome.
Okay, so that's the banks, right? So if I sold something to a bank on day 1 or month 1, if they should be coming back to us, right? That's the sort of the first test. The second thing for us as a marketplace, do consumers come back? Do consumers give you good feedback? If consumers like it, if the banks like it, the customers like it, that's half the challenge.
Meaning, like, you're mainly focused on solving a problem to someone who's out there.
You should. I mean, unless you're a business like Twitter, It doesn't solve any problem.
Well,
in that case, it's just okay. You've got your users; they understand what they're doing. Make sure that you're doing right by them, and they're coming back and they want to use your product again and again and again.
so the problem of telling everyone what I'm doing. Yeah, that's not a problem.
It's
Okay.
What happened before you were telling everyone what you're doing?
Yeah, didn't change the word. So actually it did, but so you guys have a very good track record, in my own opinion, on getting funds. So these guys were funded first by AVG, $500K.
Yeah.
Then by Cradle Fund, $155, kind of.
Thousands.
Thousand?
No, not $155.
No, K. There's a K in that, dude. I mean, K stands for thousand.
You made Cradle look very bad. I just gave these guys
It's
$150 and a taxi ride home.
From Nasser's pocket, right? $100. Okay, then you went for Series A, 2 million.
Yeah.
Then you went to TechCrunch, all the amazing shit. First of all, what can you tell people about raising funds? What are the learnings you have regarding everything from convincing the investor to invest and from your dilution, how you should manage your own percentage on it, what should you take care of, how much should you give, everything you can tell us about.
In 1 minute?
No.
Okay, so I think the first thing is try and work out how much you actually need. To start with, I think we were very, probably over-ambitious about how much money do we actually need. We had all, it's this big number, they raised the big rounds, and blah, 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 rubbish. It's really about how much do you need to get to the next stage, right? Think about, an investor wants to see continual signs that you're getting traction and getting better. So the first thing said, okay, this is our traction so far. And then we want lots of money. And they went, okay, what's that money going to get you to? And we were very vague. We said, we're going to get to billions of dollars. Everyone, don't worry, everyone overestimates their revenue plan by huge amounts. So don't worry about that. I think what they're looking for first up is to say, okay, today with this money, we will be that. Okay, and that might not be a hard revenue target or a visitor target. It might just be, you know what? This time, next year, with this money, we will be 1% of every home loan originated in Malaysia. And that's like, wow, that's quite cool. So, how to get from here, where you're going to get to, and what money do you need, and be realistic about the money that you need. It's very difficult. So sanity check with people who've done it before. Ask as many people to look at your business plan as you can and really give you feedback on that. Secondly, when you're sort of already discussing with investors, don't get emotionally hung up on one particular investor. So you're going to have to meet so many people, and you'll meet one investor who you think, oh, he really gets me, he understands it. We need to get him. We need to get him on board.
You don't fall in love with our investor, right?
Yeah, don't.
Okay.
Because the reality of it is a lot of these guys just want to have a look and then get the hell out. Okay? It happens. It's just a normal thing. It's like dating, right? You'll meet lots of people, but okay, it wasn't right, or they ran away and I don't know why. So these guys.
If he doesn't call you the second day, don't be so sorry.
Yeah, and they'll. Is it time wasting? Is it not time wasting? It's not. What you have to do is be professional at all times. Give the information they request. If they have calls at 3 a.m., answer the calls at 3 a.m. Because the investors are doing the same thing. Investors meet a lot of bad entrepreneurs and bad businesses, but they always act incredibly polite. Sorry, I'm not interested, or whatever. They don't turn around and say, this is a terrible idea, get lost. So it's one of those things, unwritten rules of the ecosystem, that you never have a bad potential investor. You always have good conversations, you always have good learnings coming out of it. In the same way that an investor technically never meets a bad entrepreneur, right? It's just, this one's not right for me, I don't invest in e-commerce, I'm looking at bigger ticket sizes, etc. So use it as a learning experience, be patient, but be super rigorous about following up everything. Right? So when we were doing our Series A, it's a big spreadsheet, everyone who we called, like a big manual CRM, was rigorous all the time. And also start thinking about, don't get too hung up on which investors to get, but don't just go for someone who signs the checks. Think about whether you're going to get someone who's going to take you to that next level that you talked about up front, right?
Smart money.
Smart money, yeah. I mean, they're all smart money, I think, right? All these VCs, because they've got lots of smart people and they invest only in things that are going to make sense. Think about guys who've been there and done it before. Think about guys who know a particular country very well, or a particular financial, particular vertical very well. Do your due diligence on them. Ask, who else have you invested in? Try to go and speak to them. You'll find out very quickly if people are like, don't speak to them. They're a weird case, something weird happened. Okay, that's a warning sign, something's not right.
So you guys had a vision to be in 5 years the first one in Southeast Asia. And I think around 18 months after you guys had started, it was October 2013, Ching, in an interview in DNA, I guess, mentioned like you were already kind of there. So, took you less than 5 years. I would just like to understand what position do you hold currently in Southeast Asia? What's your leadership position? What defines that leadership position? So, and what are your plans since your 5 years plan is done?
Yeah, go home.
I'm done.
Number one changes regularly. So the definition of number one. So for us, we're a marketplace. You talk to the car lists and the iProperties. The thing everyone cares about is traffic. Are you the number one for consumers? Right? Do you bring in the most consumers? So that's, by that barometer, we're number one in Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia. Number two in Singapore. There's a good business there called kind of Money Smart. Yeah? Been going for 6 years, I think. So they've done a good job.
Yeah.
Thailand. There's a business there called Czech Raka who do like 1.5 million visitors a month. We don't do anywhere near that there. And Hong Kong, there's only 3 or 4 businesses that do what we do, so I'd say probably number 3 there, number 4, but we don't spend any money there. So if you look at Southeast Asia in terms of total traffic, we're definitely number 1. But yeah, we don't feel we're anywhere near started, let alone finished. We've got so much work to do. You talk to my tech or product people, and they'll attest to the fact that nothing is ever enough or done fast enough. So there's plenty to do.
Awesome. So I have a few more questions. Let me ask one that's quite connected to that one. But I'm gonna be closing, so I give it to the floor, so you can start thinking if you have any questions to Bruno. But you mentioned when talking about investments that you should have your roadmap very clear, like what you want to do with that money. It's been a while, you got your Series A, and you're talking about what would be your vision right now, but are you thinking of Series B?
Well, always, what do you want to do next, right?
Yeah.
So we have a plan, we very comfortable with where we are today. We're reasonably confident about what we think the next 12 months will bring. We're still sort of, deciding where can we do this on our own, or do we need extra help, whether that's money or expertise. That's still up for grabs. I don't think we've finished that kind of discussion, but no doubt, maybe towards the start of 2015, we'll think about what we'll execute on that. We're not overly concerned. We're not in a rush to get money we don't necessarily need. But yeah, we have our plan very, very clear. It's just about, okay, do we want to do it on our own at a certain pace, or do we want to do it with someone else much, much faster?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing you mentioned once when you had a conversation is that usually this kind of business takes 14 years to go IPO or to really generate, get to the size you expected to grow. So first is just bringing up the attention for us that we usually think the road to success is very straight and fast. Companies like Facebook took 8 years to actually become a big thing. And so first of all, what makes you be sure of that commitment and not give up on the way? But attached to that question, in which stage are you guys already? Are you guys generating are you guys fairly profitable? Are you already generating profits? Or are you still in that stage of those 4 first years where you're just building valuation?
Well, lots of questions. Well, in terms of profitability, we're not there yet, but we're definitely number one by some distance on revenue. So the reason we know that is we talk to the banks, we talk to our customers, we know what we get versus what other people get. We're very confident we're way ahead when it comes to revenue, so we don't really have concerns there. The second thing about how long things take and how we stick around. Yeah, you're right. All those businesses took a long time. And if you ask the entrepreneurs who were responsible for those businesses, whether it's in the UK, Germany, or Australia, you talk to them on where they were at this stage, in 2 years, 3 years, they looked at their business after 3 years and then sort of maybe after 5. Yeah. Totally different businesses. Totally different. So it never finished, it never ends. The reason actually most of these businesses IPO, they get to profitability in about, I don't know, some of them quite late, some of them quite early, but they go to IPO because they need to give an exit to some of the guys who've been there since the start, right? Now, we're hopefully going to be able to achieve something like that much quicker. And we feel confident we can, but we're not running away from the fact that these businesses take a long time, because what you're doing as well is you're changing customers' behavior, banks. Yep. And banks are notoriously difficult to change behavior.
So actually my last question will bring us back to users, consumers, which is like, how is it to actually educate? Is it a big challenge to build, because you gotta, at the same time that you offer a product, you kind of gotta educate them on how to use it.
I think on the consumer side for financial services, most people on the simple products know how to use it. It's more maybe home loans or something like that, where there's a little bit more, I've got questions, or I want my hand held through the process. So they're probably ahead of the customers in this case, right? They know what they want. I want to understand, what the best 3 credit cards, the best 5 credit cards. Okay, it's that one, click, done. The problem is the customers don't want to do it like that. So the banks don't want to do it like that. They want to wait until you go into a branch and talk to you, or make you queue for 2 hours and all that stuff. And they're gonna, they tend to move a little bit slower. So users or the consumers here are already some way down that track. It's the customers that are the problem.
Okay, and back to my previous question, you've already mentioned that you would aim for a public offer earlier than it usually takes. Yeah. What would be like your dream? When would you expect?
Yeah, let's rewind a little bit.
What?
I'd say like whatever this sort of is, whether it's an IPO or a trade sale or an exit. No. Sometimes there was a couple of businesses in the UK. Actually, they exited to a strategic buyer. So you never know. I mean, we're open-minded about where we go. Of course, everyone should be thinking about how they're going to exit. So that's actually quite important. A lot of people go in and say, I'm going to build the biggest business. Zuckerberg, one of the first things he did, I don't know what this is yet, but I want to develop it. But of course he's thinking about where's the end. Everyone does. Yeah. So be exit-minded from the beginning, I think, in your businesses, because you need to think about an exit for your shareholders, your investors, for your people as well. Yeah. Not so much for yourselves. It's more for the people around you who are supporting you. For us, whenever it happens, we're quite agnostic about whenever it happens. We're not driven by it. We want to build the right type of business first, and then things will take care of themselves.
So who will be potential acquirers for these companies in here?
Companies that want to build that type of business in Southeast Asia, but don't want to wait 3, 4, 5 years.
Like?
I don't know, Money Supermarket, a couple of those other guys I mentioned. It could be an IPO, right? Could be.
Cool.
Like Singapore Press Holdings or something like that. Could be.
Okay.
So those type of businesses are in this space, kind of watching stuff. So we'll see.
Great. So Bruno, from my side, I would have a couple more questions, but I always use this watch that I cannot really read. So what time is it? Sorry? Oh, okay. So I'm going to give it to the floor for you guys to ask questions. Any questions? There, in the back?
be competitors in your playing field, which they are big and they have big money. So how do you respond?
How do we respond? Well, I don't think any of them have got big money at the moment, is the real answer. I think that they're all playing in their own country, they're playing in their own ways without necessarily money, but with other stuff. How do you respond? Have a healthy paranoia about your competitors. I think some people are like, oh, our product is so much better. Those guys are idiots. Bad. Sort of attitude to have. I mean, healthy paranoia, like obsess a little bit about what they're doing, try and figure out what they're doing in the same way that maybe your business is difficult to understand from the outside. Get in their shoes and figure out how they're playing, what are they doing, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what do you know about their management team. All that stuff is kind of like important to consider. Think about what they're trying to do, think about what they might do. You know, they're gonna buy someone else, how are they gonna get out, how are they gonna exit? Think, you know, don't occupy yourself thinking about competitors, but have a reasonable, I'd call it watching brief on your competitors, see what they're doing. Because they're in the same market for your customers. They're in the same market for investment, right? So watch, but don't let it kind of drive you. Yeah? Continue to go back to your customers and ensuring that from their feedback, you're number one in their eyes. Everything else takes care of itself.
Thank you. More questions?
Hi. So from the conversation, we have actually got to know pretty much of how you came across it and how you built the whole thing with the whole team. But what I want to ask is a bit more personal, if you don't mind. Throughout the whole life until now, I'm not sure, I don't know how old are you, but can you might share like what's the lowest point that you have been through and how do you get over it? It's not really hard for you.
2004, I think. I can't remember the exact month, but I think it was June or July. Portugal were in the final of Euro 2004 against Greece.
Come on.
More seriously, I think, I mean, not low, but like, I was very disappointed. I was in 2008, I was working in Germany. Loved it. I really enjoyed working there. I was working there for a big bank. And this was just before the crisis really hit. The first thing that bank did was sell the business in Germany, which meant I had to make a decision. I either go back to the parent company in London or find a new job, and you know, things were looking difficult. It wasn't so much because things were difficult, it's just like it was a really, really good team. I very much enjoyed living and working there. It was a fantastic business, and I could see myself staying there for many, many years. And they sold the business straight away, and I think, for me, but professionally, that was the lowest moment, because you've done everything within your power to build a successful business, and these guys are saying, yeah, sell that. And the whole team is just sitting there. I can't remember, when they told us, everyone just went to the pub at lunchtime. It was about 250 people in the bars outside of Germany thinking, what could we have done differently? What could we have done better? What could we have, you know? And actually the reason is so much bigger, it's just that we have to sell it, no questions asked. But you feel very, very bad. I think professionally that was a very low moment, because you feel a bit helpless, you think, what could I have done? It's quite bad. You know, apart from people dying and stuff like that. Hi.
Great business. I just wanted to ask, I'm quite intrigued by the beginning of iMoney. I just wanted to know, because at the end of the day, you're an online marketplace, so you're thinking about, when you first start off, you need to have a very good tech person in. So how did you manage to find, or was it you that carried out that role of being that tech person to kind of...
You mean online marketing?
Yeah, like smoothing the layout of the website, all the things that you started.
Oh, the design, you mean?
Yeah, pretty much.
So again, it wasn't me, it was Ching. so Ching built this whole thing with a little help, obviously from sort of there was a designer early on, and there was someone who built the website, but most of it was Ching. How did he build it? I don't think he sort of sat there and went, okay, I need to have this perfect, or whatever. He just had to have it out. He had it out in like a week. He just got it done. And there's a never-ending stream of ideas and possibilities, but if they never get executed and done, they're just that. So he was always very clear, get this done, don't worry too much about how it looks, just do that. Over time, we've kind of built the team up, because obviously once you become a bigger business, it's important. So right now, I think 3 designers in-house. So we do pay attention to it, but when you start, I'd say don't. I mean, you have so many examples of big companies. You look at their first prototype, it looks awful. So just don't worry too much about design or usability. Just have something that allows you to make quick decisions and sort of go on from there.
Okay. Do you have one last question? Always late.
Hi, Bruno. I'm Nicole. So I just have a quick question for you. A lot of times when a lot of startup founders or starting teams, when they hire in the beginning, they're optimizing for cost and speed. So very often when you hire trustable or good enough is okay, but in the future this might change. If your early team members don't grow with the business, if they don't grow along with you, you might have to let them go. It's a harsh reality, and I think it's something that the founders of maybe 1-month-old companies don't really think about, but that they will come. So I was thinking, could you offer a bit of advice regarding awarding equity to early employees and just your whole take on all this?
Yeah, sure. So equity to early employees. So there's going to be guys who are going to be there with you from the start until the end, right? It's really about the guys who you think are going to be like, if I have to be in a hospital for a month, right, and someone's going to have to sort of do something for me, it's got to be him. Or if he leaves today, this is not going to work. So the guys who are kind of indispensable, you tend to know straight away. It's up to the founder or the CEO in this case to decide what is enough. Generally, for those guys, normally you create an ESOP pool. The ESOP pool is, I don't know, normally people say 10%. And it's up to you to award that. Try and be generous, but it's so early stage. You can give 10% of that to someone, 1% is the same. So don't get obsessed with giving everything away. Keep some in reserve. The decision about who it should be awarded to, you'll know. If you're the founder, you will know. Other people who come along later, make them prove themselves, right? The reality of a well-run business is if people stick around for a long time, sometimes can be 12 months, and do a great job, you'll do right by them. That's good enough for some of them, whether you reward them with equity or a big cash bonus when things go well. Yeah, so focus on the guys who, without them, you're not going to do it. And number 2, I would never ever sort of go and say, right, we've got 10% of this ESOP, let's give it away to everyone, or do crazy stuff. Keep, I don't know, maybe try and give 30% of it away to start with, and see where you go from there. Yeah, beyond that, it's just one of those things. I don't think you can really write a guide about it. That's where you've got to show a little bit of leadership, and your guys have kind of got to, you've got to get a feel for what your guys are willing to accept.
Okay. If we don't have any more questions, actually, that was the last one. So, once again, thank you, Bruno, very much for everything, for the insightful conversation, for being here, for taking your time to come and share your experience with us. Thank you very much, and please a round of applause to Bruno, please. Okay, that was good. They're all trained. Okay, guys, no, I'm kidding. Thank you all for being here. Again, this event is about you. Besides, we had an amazing turkey this night. It was really great. Thank you all for being here. We're gonna stick around for 1 hour more if you want, or if anyone wants to suggest somewhere where we can eat and drink something, we're also open for that. The point is that we meet each other and that we build between each other this mindset of growth, collaboration, that we give more than take, help each other, make friends, and never give up on whatever you're doing. Thank you, Bruno, for sharing your experience.
Thanks,